the Kolhapur Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Shri Lalit Gandhi, past President Shri Anand Bane, my young friend Shri Satej Patil, MLC and former Minister of Maharashtra, Shri Sanjay Shetty, Vice President of KCCI, Mayor of Kolhapur Municipal Corporation, Srimati Shobha Bondre, President of the Kolhapur City Congress Committee, Shri Chavan, Senior Leader of the Maharashtra Pradesh Congress Committee, Shri Sharad Ranpise, another Vice President of KCCI, Shri Chandrakant Jadhav, former President Shri Patil Kapadia, Chairman and members of various associations, my colleagues and friends from the Congress Party, the NCP and other political parties, citizens of Kolhapur, friends from the media. I'm very happy to be here on my third visit to Kolhapur to speak at the Kolhapur Chamber of Commerce and Industry on the Indian economy. My first visit, if I recall, was in the early 1980s when my classmate and friend Shri R.M. Prem Kumar was collector of Kolhapur. Kolhapur was a very small city then, certainly not a municipal corporation. When I came a few months ago for the D.Y. Patil Medical College convocation, and I got a glimpse of the tremendous expansion of Kolhapur. Today, I'm very happy to be here once again amidst you. I'm very happy for many reasons. The monsoons arrived, that is a good reason. After this function, I hope to be able to visit the Mahalakshmi temple. That itself is a good reason. And I'm happy to speak to you about the Indian economy, although I'm not happy about the Indian economy. It's like a doctor visiting a patient. The visit is not a happy occasion, but for the doctor, it is a professional visit and therefore it's a happy occasion. You must understand what was the state of the Indian economy and what is the current status of the Indian economy, and more importantly, in what direction it is headed. Economists have given various names to the theory, but it's common sense. People spend when they are happy. People spend their money when they are confident. People save when they are unhappy. People become a little more stingy when they are unhappy and not confident about the future. Today, among the four measures of four engines of growth, the one engine that clearly indicates that people are unhappy is private consumption. Private consumption is at an all-time low. a low of about last 8, 9, 10 years. Why? People are not confident about the future. So we should therefore ask ourselves, why did this happen? How did this happen? I'm not going to go back 27 years to talk to you about liberalization. You all know the remarkable change brought about by liberalization. It is not as if nothing was done in the pre-liberalization days. A lot was done during pre-liberalization, but what was done was not enough to put the economy on a fast growth track. Take, for example, the cooperative sugar mills. Many of the cooperative sugar mills were founded pre-liberalization. The Green Revolution took place pre-liberalization. The White Revolution, the milk production started pre-liberalization. Practically all of India's steel capacity, including the private sector, Tata, was pre-liberalization. So it's not correct to say nothing was done pre-liberalization. But despite all this, our growth rate did not cross 5.5% a year. And 5.5% is certainly not enough to make this country free from poverty. And 5.5% growth is not enough to improve our infrastructure, to expand the education opportunities, to expand the health opportunities, and to create more wealth in this country. 5.5% was certainly not enough. Liberalization unshackled India's economy. The way I look at liberalization is, in the first 40 years, the government took away the freedom and power of the people and ran the economy. Post-liberalization, government gave back to the people the freedom and the right to take their economic decisions. We opened the economy and said, all right, you go ahead and decide. What do you want to invest in? What do you want to make? What do you want to sell? Where do you want to sell? What technology you will employ? You take those decisions. Government will no longer take those decisions. You take those decisions. And that gave back to the people what always belonged to them. Please remember, before the days of government as we know it, all these decisions were taken by the people. Throughout the centuries, people decided what they will export, what they will import, what they will make, what they will sell, what they will buy. Government did not decide that. That is a right of the people. Government took away that right, took away that freedom, did a few things, but not enough. And then in 1991, we decided this is not the path to go. Let us give back to the people the freedom, the right to do what they wish to do, and let us only lay down the ground rules. Government's business is to lay a level playing field. In that level playing field, people must compete with each other, and that will bring greater efficiency to the economy, will improve production, will improve quality, will make us stronger and more prosperous. That was proved in the first few years after liberalization. There have been change of governments. We've had a Congress government, we had United Front governments, we had a BJP government. followed by Congress governments, and now we have an NDA government. But that is the norm in a democracy. I accept it. I have no quarrel with the proposition that people have a right to elect a government and people have a right to ask the government to leave and elect a new government. In fact, I'm proud that India is perhaps the only uninterrupted surviving democracy among all countries that became free in 1947 or thereabouts. We are the only uninterrupted surviving democracy. There have been other democracies, but they were interrupted. Others did not survive democracy. We are the only uninterrupted surviving democracy. I'm proud of that. Now let us talk about the last 14 years. In the last 14 years, you've had a UPA government for 10 years, which was a coalition led by the Congress party. And in the last 4 years, we have an NDA government, which is a sort of a coalition, but with a very dominant party at the lead, the BJP, which has an absolute majority. The Congress never had an absolute majority. In fact, my only regret in life is that I've been finance minister for a long time, but I've never been finance minister in a government which had an absolute majority. I've always been finance minister in a coalition government. So that is the difference between the two governments, UPA and NDA. Now let us tick off the major things that were done in the UPA government. There is no doubt in anyone's mind that India's economy doubled and trebled in those 10 years. Our GDP doubled and then trebled, went 3 times in those 10 years. Take exports. In May 2004, India's merchandise exports was $63 billion. That is 6,300 crore dollars. If you want to know the rupees, you have to multiply by the exchange rate. But 6,300 crore dollars or $63 billion. When we laid down office 10 years later, India's merchandise export went up 5 times, 500% to $315 billion or 31,500 crore dollars. 5 times India's exports went up. In that 10-year period, by all accounts, 14 crore people were lifted out of poverty. Never before in India's history have 14 crore people been lifted out of poverty in a matter of 10 years. India's growth rate in UPA-1 averaged 8.5%, the highest in any 5-year period. We have never had average 8.5% growth in 5 years. In the second 5 years, thanks to the international financial crisis of 2008, the growth rate dipped. Nevertheless, in the entire 10-year period of UPA, the average growth rate was 7.5%, again a record for any 10-year period. We have never had a 10-year period where growth was 7.5%. So I could go on and on. Education was expanded. Educational opportunities were expanded. Please remember that in central universities and central colleges, there was reservation only for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. The OBC did not have reservation. For scheduled castes, we had a reservation of 15%. For scheduled tribes, we had a reservation of 7.5%. The remaining 77.5% was open competition. There was no reservation for OBC. But the bulk of the people of this country are OBC. You can't deny that. They are not scheduled caste, they are not scheduled tribe, but they are certainly not upper caste. They are OBC. They are peasants. They are farmers. They are traders. They are daily workers. These are the people who form the bulk of India. Therefore, we decided their children must also have reservation. But in doing that, we did not want the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to say, you're taking away our share, and nor did we want the 77.5% to say, you are taking away our share. So what did we do? We expanded the capacity of all IITs, IIMs, central institutions. Where we had 100 seats, we created 154 seats. When 154 seats are created, 77.5 still remains for open competition, 15 still remains for scheduled caste, 7.5 still remains for scheduled tribe, and the remaining 50 goes to the OBC. That is how OBC children got admission. And OBC is the bulk. Anyone who works for you as a domestic help, or in your company, or in your farm, you will ask them. Most of them are OBCs. We were giving them, we expanded education, we expanded healthcare. So much was done in 10 years, and I think the people said, thank you very much, you can take rest for 5 years, and we will find another government. I accept it, I have no problem with that, I accept it. I accept it because it's a lesson in humility. You tell people, all right, you've had 10 years, you rest now. It's like somebody who may have scored 2 centuries in a test series, but he's told, all right, you can rest for the T20, we'll have some other player, we can consider you later. So we have today another set of players. I had great expectations about the government. I thought the BJP and therefore the NDA was always in favor of trade and business, and therefore they will take sensible decisions that will help trade and business. Ultimately, who produces wealth in this country? I ask yourself, who produces wealth in this country? Does the Joint Secretary and the Deputy Secretary produce wealth? The only wealth they produce is files. They don't produce wealth. MPs don't produce wealth, they can produce words. MLA, MLC doesn't produce wealth. CBI, ED don't produce wealth. The people who produce wealth are business people, traders, farmers, people who create wealth. Those are the people who produce wealth. First, wealth must be produced. Then wealth must be shared. If a baker does not bake a cake, what do you do on a birthday party? What do you cut? If there is no cake, what can you cut? The baker produces a small cake, you can cut it into small pieces. If a bakery produces a big cake, you can cut it into big pieces and give more to the children. So the most important people in the country, according to me, are people who create wealth. They are farmers, traders, and business persons. They are the most important people in this country. They are the ones who produce wealth. So I genuinely thought that the BJP, traditionally a party of the trading community and the business community, will take sensible decisions, and they will not interrupt the high growth path which they inherited, they will make the train go at a faster pace. But I must admit that, thanks to the 2008 crisis, the train did slow down. In 2012-13, the GDP grew by 5.7%. In 2013-14, the last year of the UPA government, it went up to 6.3%. So we had gone back. All that happened after 2008 had been more or less, not entirely, more or less rectified, and the country was on a growth path. 5.7, 6.3. And the economic survey presented by the first economic survey presented by the NDA government acknowledged that India's growth in 2013-14, when they took office in May 26, 2014, was 6.3%. I was hoping that 6.3 will become 7, 7 will become 8, 8 will become 9, and like the boom years, we will go back to 9% growth. That was my fond hope. What happened? In 2014-15, indeed the economy went up to 7.5%. I was genuinely happy. From 5.7, 6.3, it went up to 7.5. First year of the BJP government, it went up to 7.5. The next year, 2015-16, thanks to the international economy, which is very benign and growing, it went up to 8.2%. The methodology had been changed. So the 7.5 is not equal to the old 7.5, but I'm willing to keep that argument aside. Let us keep that aside. Let us assume that the new 7.5 is equal to the old 7.5. Let us assume that the new 8.2 is equal to the old 8.2. Let us assume that. So I was very happy. 5.7, 6.3, 7.2, 7.5, 8.2. I said, yes, the economy is growing. Then came the big blow. I still don't understand why they did it. I have not come across anyone who can tell me why they did it. Dr. Geeta Gopinath, a celebrated economist of Indian origin who lives in America, who's a teacher, she said, and I quote, "I have not met any economist anywhere in the world who has a good word about demonetization." Now, why did they do it? I mean, I cannot understand. And nobody has explained to me why it was done. I must have spoken to thousands of people. Why did you do demonetization? What did that poor 500 and 1,000 rupee currency note do to you? Why did you have to demonetize 15,44,000 crore worth of currency notes? And look at the price we paid. On the very next day, I addressed a press conference at the AICC and said, this is a grave mistake. This is going to cost the country between about 1.5% of growth. The very next day, on behalf of the Congress Party, I said so. A few days later, Dr. Manmohan Singh rose in Parliament and made that famous short speech. Demonetization is an utter disaster. It is monumental loot and organized plunder. Look at the price we have paid. From 8.2 in 2015-16, instead of going up, we came down to 7.1 in 2016-17, and we have come down to 6.7 in 2017-18. So we are there where we started. We started with 6.3, we went up, and we have come down. We are now down at 6.7. Demonetization was a terrible mistake. This nation will never forget the blunder called demonetization. Thousands and thousands of small and medium industries were closed down. You all heard of Tirupur, a major garment city. There are major garment factories. There's a place in Tirupur called Old Bus Stand. It is called Old Bus Stand because the bus stand has been shifted to a new place now. It's called a new bus stand. In the old bus stand area, there were 5,000 units. Small shops, small units, doing job work for the big garment factories. 2 or 3 employees stitching buttons, tassels, collars, doing small job work. Today, there are 500. 4,500 units have been shut down in one town. The only reason, demonetization. Similar stories can be heard from Moradabad down south to Kochi. Every industrial hub in this country has been affected. Thousands and thousands of units have been closed down. Lakhs of workers have lost their jobs. Apart from that, farmers were affected. Farm labor did not get salary for 30 days because there was no cash to pay. Daily workers, skilled and unskilled, carpenter, tailor, electrician, plumber, they had no jobs for nearly 1.5 months. Flower vendor, fruit vendor, vegetable vendor. They were selling their goods, but nobody had any cash to pay. The homemaker, the housewife, did not have any cash to pay. The terrible mistake. None of the objectives were as achieved. It did not get rid of fake currency. We still have fake currency. It did not get rid of black money. If black money can be generated in old currency, black money can be generated in new currency also. It did not get rid of terrorist financing. Actually, in Kashmir, terrorist incidents have increased. I've got the numbers. The highest terrorist incident was in 2017, and 2018, the first 5 months are even higher. It did not get rid of corruption. People are giving and taking bribes in 2,000 rupee notes. Even before I saw a 2,000 rupee note, I found that in Kandla Port Trust, 2 engineers were caught red-handed accepting bribes in crisp 2,000 rupee notes. None of the objectives of demonetization was achieved. We thought that when the money comes back to the Reserve Bank, a significant portion will be impounded as unaccounted money, and that will become a windfall for the government. So we asked the Reserve Bank, how much money has come back? The Reserve Bank is saying, we are still counting the money. How many of you have been to Tirupati? In Tirupati there's a huge hundi. You've seen that hundi? Big white hundi, in which people offer cash, jewelry, whatever. Next morning at 11 o'clock, there are volunteer hundi collection collectors. You have to volunteer for that job. They will select you by drawing lots. It's considered a prestigious job to count the hundi of Lord Balaji. So they will sit round and count the money, and by 3-4 hours they will count the money. So I told the Reserve Bank governor, what are you doing with your counting machines? Why don't you go to Tirupati and ask those hundi collection counters to come? They will count the money very quickly. Every rupee has come back to the Reserve Bank. They are ashamed to admit that every rupee has come back. So what did demonetization achieve? Nothing but misery. And it cost India's economy 1.5%. 8.2 minus 6.7. Do the calculation. 8.2 minus 6.7 is exactly the 1.5 that I said will be the damage to India's economy. 1.5% GDP means several lakh crores. It means almost 2.5 lakh crore is a loss to India's economy thanks to one foolish decision. So I thought the government had learned its lesson. It will not take any more foolish decisions. But it took another foolish decision. The idea was a good idea. In fact, the idea was my idea. So I can't say my idea was a bad idea. In 2006, when I presented the budget, I said, now that we have successfully implemented VAT all over the country, we have replaced sales tax by VAT, we have abolished octroi, now a value-added tax where you can get input credit. Let us move to the next goal of GST. My budget speech of 2006 contains a paragraph. For 8 years, the BJP opposed GST. Today they may become champions of GST. But the history will say for 8 years, GST was opposed. We formed the Finance Ministers' Council. In the Finance Ministers' Council, there was the Gujarat Finance Minister, Shri Saurabh Patil, and the Madhya Pradesh Finance Minister, Shri Ragaj. Both of them, tooth and nail, opposed GST. I took them aside and said, what are you doing? Why are you opposing GST? Sir, we have instructions to oppose GST. They would not let us pass the GST bill. Pranab Mukherjee introduced the GST bill. When I came back to the Finance Ministry, I tried my best to pass it. But until the end of the last day of the UPA government, the BJP refused to allow us to pass the GST bill. That is history. When they came back to power, they had a conversion. They changed their heart and said, we are going to pass the GST. So we said, fine, pass the GST. We'll support you in Parliament. Remember, if Congress party had opposed the GST would not have passed. We could have stopped it because it required a constitution amendment. And a constitution amendment cannot be passed except by a 2/3 majority. And we could have blocked the GST bill in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha. But we did not. We said, pass the GST bill, but you will recall my speech in Parliament on behalf of the Congress party. I said, listen, don't make the mistakes you make. What you're doing is wrong. The drafting is wrong, the design is wrong, the structure is wrong. It's a good idea, but you're making a bad job of a good idea. This is not GST. Keep only one rate and cap the rate at your chief economic advisor's number, 15 or maximum 15.5%. If you want a cushion, I said, all right, I'm prepared to give you a cushion, go up to 18%, but don't go beyond 18%, but have only one rate. They said, we'll take care of all that when we announce the rates. Today, let us pass the Constitution Amendment Bill. Reluctantly, but cautioning them, we passed the Constitution Amendment Bill and said, all right, go ahead and bring about GST. What did they bring? What did they bring? Your child wants a little puppy. So you say, all right, I'll get you a puppy. You go to a breeder. You look at the various breeds. Then you decide, all right, this Pomeranian is very nice. This Cocker Spaniel is very nice. It's a nice puppy. And you bring a puppy wrapped in a piece of cloth in a basket. The child opens the basket, there's no puppy, there is a piglet there, there's a pig there. What is this GST? This is not GST. When you start with 8 rates: 0, 0.3, 5, 8, 12, 18, 28, 40 plus cesses. How do you call it GST? If you do business in one state, you must file 3 returns a month and 1 annual return. 37 returns to do business in one state. If you're doing business all over India, you'll have to file 1,000 returns. Every company is filing 1,000 returns. Tata Steel is filing 1,000 returns. Bharti Airtel is filing 1,000 returns. Vodafone is filing 1,000 returns. Hindustan Lever is filing 1,000 returns. How do you file 1,000 returns? I'm sure your Chamber of Commerce has studied GST. And I'm sure you know more about GST than I do. Let me ask you a few questions. The entire GST is based on 3 forms, correct? GSTR Form 1, GSTR Form 2, and GSTR Form 3. Am I right? GSTR Form 1 is for outward supplies. GSTR Form 2 is for input tax credit. GSTR Form 3 is your net tax liability. 1 minus 2. Correct? The day they brought the bill, they said all 3 forms will be notified. GSTR 1 was notified. Has GSTR 2 been notified? No. Has GSTR 3 been notified? No. Then how do you calculate your tax liability? So they used a temporary form, Form 3B. You have to fill Form 3B based on some kind of assumption. There is no GSTR 2, you don't know your input tax liability, input tax credit. So you're hoping you're right and you're filing Form 3B. You may be wrong. And tomorrow they will come after you. In income tax, there is something known as a revised return. Original return and then a revised return. In sales tax, there was a revised return. In excise duty, there was a provision for revised return. In customs duty, there is a provision for filing a revised import manifest. In GST today, there is no provision to file a revised return. If you file a wrong return, you're finished. There is no provision to file a revised return. And why are refunds not given? Because the section does not provide for applying for refund when there is excess cash payment. There is no provision in the Act for excess cash payment, refunds. I know a company which has gone to court saying I've paid 700 crore excess cash, how do I get a refund? The court has issued notice to the department to answer the question. This is not GST. This is simply threatening you at the point of a gun, pay the tax. You may not have GST 2, you may not have GST 3, you may not have a revised return, you may not have a provision for refund. I don't care, pay the tax. That is how the department is treating you today. They are coming and telling you if you don't pay the tax on some assumption, some best estimate, we are going to prosecute you. So you're all paying the tax without knowing whether you're paid more or less. This is not GST. This is Gabbar Singh tax. This is why we call it Gabbar Singh tax. The government is simply squeezing the trading community. Today, do you know something? I don't know, I'm asking the question. The GST law is in English language. I'm sure it's been translated to Hindi. Has it been translated in Marathi? So how will a small businessman in Kolhapur understand the law? I can't understand the English language. Honestly, I am not able to understand many sections written in English. I have to read it again and again and again. I'm supposed to be a trained lawyer. I read it again and again and again to understand what the law says. If it is not in Marathi, if it is not in Tamil, if it is not in Bengali, if it is not in Odisha, if it is not in Malayalam, how will the small businessman understand even GST? This is not the way to bring about GST. I'm not boasting. If we had been in government, I would have brought about a much better design, much better structured, simple, clear GST, which would have not have created problems for you. We brought VAT, it created no problem for anyone. There was initial difficulties for the first 1 or 2 months, but we resolved them. In GST, it is going to take a long time to rectify the mistakes they have committed. So after demonetization, the second biggest blow to India's economy is the flawed GST. The third damage to India's economy is the way they have treated the banking sector. If there is anyone in this audience who can go to a bank and get a loan, say, for 500 crore to put up a plant, you deserve the Nobel Prize. And the bank chairman who has the courage to give you the loan deserves 2 Nobel Prizes. No bank is willing to give you a loan today. In fact, no bank is in a position to give you a loan. Every bank is under PCA, Prompt Corrective Action. I've heard of SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. Now I hear PCA. Every bank is under PCA. State Bank, Punjab National Bank, Allahabad Bank, Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, now ICICI Bank, Axis Bank. The only bank which is not under PCA must be the Kolhapur City Cooperative Bank. What has happened to our banking system? Is this the way to handle the problem? There is a problem, I'm not denying it. I faced the most serious problem. In 2008, September 15, Lehman Brothers collapsed. The entire international banking system collapsed. 1,000 banks. 1,000 banks in the United States of America collapsed. In Germany, 2 banks collapsed. In England, banks collapsed. In India, we did not allow a single bank to collapse. Not one bank collapsed. If you have a problem, you must know how to deal with the problem. In May 2014, NPA was 4.6% or so. Today, NPA has crossed 11%. It will go up to 12%. Every successive chairman, what does he say? There was a funny article day before yesterday. Pradeep Chaudhary, chairman of State Bank, said, when he laid down office, the worst is over. Now we can look to better days. Comes Arundhati Bhattacharya. When she lays down office, she says, the worst is over. We are looking for better days. Now the present chairman says, the worst is over. We are looking for better days. I think he's going to retire. When the worst is over, then how is the worst coming? From 4.6%, how do you go to 11%? You don't know to deal with the problem. There is a problem, I'm not denying it. The economy went into a downturn. People are unable to pay their loans. Not all of them are willful defaulters. Some are willful defaulters who must take strong action. But most of them are not willful defaulters. They are defaulters, but not willful defaulters. They are not cheating you. They are not able to pay because the business is not doing well. There is a difference between default and willful default. Default happens if the business cycle goes down. Willful default happens if you siphon off money. Every businessman is not a willful defaulter. So if there are 10 cases of default, you must distinguish between genuine business cycle default and willful default. In the case of willful default, you must take action. But you don't take action. You allow the Vijay Mallya and the Nirav Modi and the Mehul Chokshi to run away from this country. And you catch hold of the guy who's not a willful defaulter, he's simply a defaulter because the business cycle is turned against him. If your major steel companies go to insolvency, your power companies go to insolvency, your coal mines go into insolvency, who will invest in steel? Who will invest in power? Who will invest in coal? Of the 12 companies that were sent to insolvency in the first round, 5 are steel companies, 3 are power companies. Who will invest in steel? Who will invest in power anymore? This government totally failed in dealing with the banking crisis. You can put it down to inexperience or lack of knowledge, whatever the reason. This government totally failed in dealing with the banking crisis. And the result is today, no bank is in a position to lend any money. No investor is in a position to borrow any money. And if you do not borrow money, how do you invest? If you want capital, there is a debt equity ratio. I put in 1 rupee, I borrow 2 rupees. Or I put in 2 rupees, I borrow 3 rupees. If there is no credit, how will I put in my money? How can you put 100% of your own money as equity? Who has got that kind of money? That is why today, banks don't give loans at all. The only loans banks are giving are house loans and motor car loans. They're very simple. It doesn't require a credit committee to appraise it. There is a house, you give a loan. There is a car, you give a loan. Independent directors are resigning. No credit committee is willing to pass a loan. No chairman is willing to take a decision. I meet chairmen here and there, flight, airport. So I ask them, how's your bank doing? How's the credit situation? He looks around and then comes and says, sir, I'm retiring in 6 months. Nobody is willing to grow. How will this country grow? There are 4 engines of growth. Private consumption, private investment, exports, and government expenditure consumption. It's like 4 wheels of a car with properly inflated tires, wheels aligned. Then the car can go. If the wheel is perfectly aligned, if the tires are correctly inflated, the car can even go at 120 kilometers an hour. Today, export growth is 0 in the last 4 years. 0. Export growth is 0 in the last 4 years. We left, as I said, exports at $315 billion. 17-18, they ended with $303 billion. So it's actually a dip, no growth. Private investment is down, as I told you. Private consumption is down. The only wheel which is having a tire and running is government expenditure. It's like a car running on 3 punctured wheels. How can the car run? It is running only in 1 wheel today. And that wheel is running only because government is socking you, squeezing you by taxing you on petrol, diesel, gas. When UPA was in office, average crude oil prices was $105 a barrel. The NDA had an enormous good fortune. Crude oil prices fell to $26 a barrel. For nearly 2.5 years, crude oil prices were $40 a barrel. In the last 6 months, it has climbed up to about $78 a barrel. But $78 a barrel is still far less than $105 a barrel. So I'm asking you a simple question. If the raw material cost, which was $105 a barrel, has fallen to $40 or even take $78, why is the price of petrol and diesel today more than the price it was in May 2014? Can somebody explain this mystery to me? Raw material cost has fallen, but the price is higher. Why? Because government is not passing on the benefit of raw material cost to the consumer. More than that, whatever the excise duty on petrol and diesel was in May 2014, this government has put an additional 10 rupees per litre of petrol and an additional 11 rupees per litre of diesel. Additional tax over and above the tax in May. Which is why the price of petrol and diesel today is more than it was in May 2014. They are raking in something like 3 lakh crore. 3 lakh crore is being taken in through petrol and diesel taxation, which is to keep that one tire running. But for that, even that one tire cannot run. But it is so unfair to the common people. When prices are rising, common people will pay. When prices are falling, common people are entitled to ask the question, why are you not giving us some of the benefit? If you think people are accepting this price rise with pleasure, you are wrong. You go to a petrol bunk in the morning. Everyone who fills his two-wheeler with petrol is cursing the government, but he doesn't know what to do. What can he do? He has to go to work that day. Everyone who's filling petrol or diesel in his car is cursing the government. What can he do? He has to run his business. He has to go to work. His children have to go to school. He has to go to office. If government thinks there is no large-scale riot on petrol and diesel, people have accepted it, they are wrong. And on the 1st of June, they raised gas by another 50 rupees. Gas is also produced from crude oil only, or associated gas. Why is the price of gas rising? These are questions which the government must answer. And the last grave damage to the economy is what they have done to agriculture. In UPA government, for 10 years, Mr. Sharad Pawar was the agriculture minister. For 10 years, one man was agriculture minister. And the average growth rate of agriculture in those 10 years was 4.1%. The highest growth rate in any 10-year period in agriculture. Today, in the last 4 years, agriculture is growing at 2.7%. 2.7%. In our time, agricultural wages increased every year by about an average of about 5.5%. In the last 4 years, agricultural wages have increased by 0.5%. In 4 years, it has increased by 0.5%. 0.4 actually. No wonder the farmers are upset. Farmers don't get fair prices. Tomatoes are selling at a price which is uneconomical to the farmer. In 1 year it is onion, in 1 year it is potato, in 1 year it is soya bean, in 1 year it is tomato. If the farmer does not get the price which is necessary to cover his costs and some profit, how will the farmer produce vegetable or fruit or rye paddy or wheat? Why should he produce it? That is why the farmers are agitating. They have stopped the supply of vegetables and fruit to Mumbai. I don't know when they are going to stop to other cities. For Delhi, I think they have announced the date June 10. The farmers are unhappy. Small and medium business, which creates jobs. 90% of all jobs are created in the small and medium sector. Farmers are unhappy. Small and medium sector is unhappy. Average consumer is unhappy. Fuel prices are at an all-time high. Private consumption is low. Private investment is practically dead. Exports have zero growth. Banks don't give credit. Now you realize the state of our India's economy. This is the economy that we have after 4 years. This is not what we bargained for. This is not Achhe Din. In fact, the joke is, we don't want Achhe Din, bring back the Purana Burra Din. This is not Achhe Din that was promised. And finally they promised jobs, 2 crore jobs a year. Have they created jobs? There are a lot of young people in this audience. How many of them have got jobs? Where are the jobs? Who's creating jobs? Now you're all businessmen. I ask you, Mr. Lalit Gandhi, I don't know what business he runs. I want to ask him, with all humility, has he created an additional job in his business in the last 12 months? If he employed so far 100 people, is he now employing 101 people? I've asked this question everywhere I go. Anyone stand up and say, in my business, I've created an additional real job. Now don't say, my nephew was looking for a job, so I told him come and join my business. That is not a job. What else will the nephew do? What else will the uncle do? There are already 5 people. The nephew is graduated. He has no job. All right, you also come and sit in the office. That is not a job. A genuine job. Please tell me who has created an additional job in his business or factory in the last 12 months. There are no jobs being created. Friends, the economy is in bad shape. It requires drastic medicine. Don't be carried away by these numbers. These numbers are capable of interpretation. The real fact is, farmers are unhappy, small and medium sector is unhappy, self-employed are unhappy, profits are squeezed, there's no private investment, government admits it, private consumption is an all-time low, exports are negative growth, and therefore you have to reflect and think what needs to be done. Management of the economy is today a very, very difficult skill. Not everyone can manage an economy. You can manage politics, you can manage other things. But to manage an economy in this globalized world is a very complex, very complicated activity. I'm not saying the BJP does not have competent people to manage. Maybe there are, but they are not managing the economy today. I am confident that competent people can be found in this country. Competent people can be found in every part of the country. One of the most famous economists of this country, D.R. Gadgil, was born in this area, isn't it? Yes. Kolhapur. D.R. Gadgil belonged to this area. He was the pioneer of the cooperative sugar movement. Not many people remember that Dr. Ambedkar was a great economist, apart from a great lawyer who wrote the Constitution. C.D. Deshmukh belonged to the state, Maharashtra. It is not as if you can't find competent men and women in this country to run India's economy. Unfortunately, today, such men and women are not running India's economy. India's economy is gravely damaged. And more worrying is, I don't know which direction we are going. Where are we going? What is the next bombshell? I don't know. I hope there is no such thing like demonetization or Gabbar Singh tax. In fact, is there any doctor in this audience? The first thing that is given to a doctor is to Hippocratic oaths. You know the sum and substance of Hippocratic, it's a long oath. You know what it says? Do no harm. The doctor has said, even if you don't do any good to the patient, don't do any harm to the patient. Do no harm. That is the sum and substance of the Hippocratic oath, which is administered to a doctor when he graduates. All I can plead with this government is, you've got one more year, you may win, you may not win, I don't know. It's for people to decide. But in this 1 year, please do no more harm. Thank you.